In a quiet Igbo village called Ensues, hidden among lush green forests, there was an ancient tree known to all as the ensues, the talking tree. The tree was enormous, its roots winding deep into the earth, with branches that spread wide and high, reaching towards the sky. The people of Ensues believed the tree was sacred and held a spirit within it. They said the tree could speak, though it only spoke when it had something important to say, and only to those who it chose. For years, the villagers respected the talking tree. But one day, strange things began to happen. People started hearing whispers at night. At first, it seemed like the wind rustling through the trees, but the whispers grew louder and clearer, almost as if they were calling out names. Soon, the villagers realized that these were not just any names, they were names of people from the village. And every time someone heard their name whispered by the talking tree, that person would disappear. The first to vanish was Amaka, a kind young woman known for her skill in crafting clay pots. Her laughter and gentle spirit were well loved by everyone. But one morning, her parents woke up to find her bed empty. They searched their hut, then the village, calling her name, but Amaka was gone. She had simply disappeared. Her parents remembered hearing her name called in the night, but they didn't know what it meant. At first, they thought it was just a bad dream. But soon, more people began to vanish, each one leaving without a trace. Fear spread through the village as people grew anxious, wondering if their own names might be called next. The elders of Ensues gathered to discuss the matter. They knew they needed help to understand what was happening, so they called upon the village diviner, Dibia Okaik. Dibia Okaik was a wise man with a face painted in white chalk and beads around his neck. He was known to speak to spirits and had a deep knowledge of the land's mysteries. When the villagers asked him what to do, he sat before them, silent and thoughtful, holding his gourd filled with cowrie shells. Finally, after studying the shells, he spoke. The ensues has awakened, Dibia Okaik said in a calm but serious voice. The tree is angry, and it is calling back the people to remind us of a promise we have broken. Those who have disappeared are with the tree, deep within its roots. If we do not make amends, they may never return. The villagers were filled with fear and confusion. What promise had they broken? And how could they bring their loved ones back? In the village, there was a young boy named Nandi who had always been a dreamer. He loved listening to his mother's stories about spirits, gods, and the ancient traditions of their people. Recently, Nandi had been having strange dreams. In these dreams, he would find himself standing before the talking tree, surrounded by its towering roots and branches. The tree would call his name, as if summoning him. "Come, Nandi," the tree would say in a deep voice. "Come and find those who are lost. They are here, waiting." At first, Nandi tried to ignore the dreams, but they grew stronger and more vivid with each night. He could feel the tree's pull, as though it were calling him. One evening, Nandi shared his dreams with his mother. She listened carefully, her face serious and worried. "The tree is calling you," she said. "It must have a reason. You must be brave, my son, but be careful. This journey will not be easy." With his mother's blessing and guidance from Dibia Okaik, Nandi set out alone into the forest that night. The air was cool and filled with the hum of insects as he made his way toward the tree. Fireflies glowed around him, lighting his path through the thick trees. The forest was dark, yet he felt guided by something beyond him, a force he could not see. Finally, he arrived at the talking tree, which loomed before him, its branches spreading like giant arms. As Nandi approached, he noticed something incredible. The roots of the tree began to shift in part, slowly forming an entrance into the ground. It was as if the tree was inviting him to enter. Taking a deep breath, Nandi stepped forward, feeling a strange mix of fear and excitement. He could hear the tree's voice in his mind, urging him forward. "Enter, Nandi. Those who are lost are waiting for you." Inside, Nandi found himself in a strange, otherworldly place. The roots of the tree twisted and turned, forming a labyrinth that seemed to go on forever. Faint, glowing light illuminated the space, casting eerie shadows on the walls of roots. As he walked, Nandi saw ghostly figures moving around him. To his shock, he recognized them. They were the villagers who had disappeared, including Amaka. They stood there in silence, their eyes blank, as if under a spell. Then, a shadowy figure appeared before him. It was the spirit of the tree, an ancient being with dark, deep eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. The spirit spoke in a voice that made the roots tremble. "These people are not gone," it said. "They are trapped here because of the village's broken promise. Long ago, your people promised to care for the land, to respect it. But they have taken without giving back, and the spirits are angry." Nandi felt a pang of guilt as he listened. He wanted to help the lost villagers, to bring them back. "What can we do?" he asked, his voice small but determined. "How can we make this right?" The spirit's gaze softened as it looked at him. "If your people make a new promise, a promise that they will keep forever, I will release those who are lost," it said. Nandi nodded, promising to take the message back to the villagers and to convince them to honor the bond they had once made. The spirit seemed satisfied, and as it faded away, Nandi began to feel a sense of hope. Returning to Umia's, Nandi gathered the villagers and told them everything he had seen and heard. He explained that the talking tree was angry because they had forgotten to honor the land and the spirits who protected them. The villagers listened, realizing the truth in Nandi's words. They understood that they had taken too much without giving back, and they felt ashamed of their neglect. Under Dibia Okaike's guidance, the villagers prepared a ceremony to make amends. They brought offerings of food, water, and incense to the foot of the talking tree. Together, they pledged to respect the land, to care for it, and to honor the spirits who watched over them. They vowed to never forget their bond with the earth and to pass this promise down to their children and their children's children. As they finished the ceremony, a feeling of peace filled the air. The branches of the talking tree seemed to sway gently, as though acknowledging their vow. And then, one by one, the lost villagers began to reappear. Their eyes were clear, their faces filled with relief and joy as they embraced their loved ones. The people of Umias rejoiced, grateful to have their family and friends back. They danced and sang under the open sky, celebrating the safe return of those they thought they had lost. From that day on, the villagers kept their promise to the talking tree and the spirits of the land. They learned to live in harmony with the earth, giving as much as they took, and they never forgot the lessons they had learned. The talking tree remained a silent but watchful presence, a reminder of the bond between the people and the land they called home.